Scandal in a luxury restaurant. A racist waiter crossed the line by spitting into the drink of an Afro-descendant customer, but he didn't count on Rihanna catching him in the act. The superstar, furious, didn't hesitate to call the owner of the place to demand immediate justice. What led this employee to commit such a repugnant act? How did the victim, a respected civil rights attorney, react? This scandal is already trending on social media, and we're telling you everything that happened behind the scenes. Don't miss it. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. The restaurant smelled of luxury and pretension. Crystal glasses gleamed under the dim light, and the murmurs of conversations blended with the clinking of silverware. Rihanna was seated in a corner, half hidden behind a pair of sunglasses, enjoying a quiet dinner. But something in the air changed. A chill. A strange vibration. She looked up. There he was. The waiter, with his fake smile and polished manners, holding a wine glass as if it were a trophy. But it wasn't the glass that caught Rihanna's attention. It was the reflection in the decorative mirror behind the bar. A quick movement, almost imperceptible. A spit. Directly into the wine. Rihanna froze. Had she seen that correctly? Had that guy just spit into that woman's glass? The woman, an elegantly dressed Afro-descendant, was sitting just a few tables away, laughing with her partner, completely unaware of the vileness that had just occurred. The waiter, for his part, was walking toward her with the glass in hand, his smile intact, as if he had done nothing wrong. Rihanna's heart pounded. How could someone be so despicable? What the hell had motivated that act? There had been no argument, no misunderstanding. Just pure, raw racism, spat into a wine glass as if it were a private joke. Without thinking twice, Rihanna stood up. Her heels echoed against the wooden floor, drawing the attention of some diners. She crossed the restaurant with firm steps, heading straight for the woman's table. The waiter had just served the glass and was about to walk away, but Rihanna intercepted him with a look that could melt ice. "Excuse me," she said, her voice so cold that it froze the air. "What did you just do?" The waiter paled. "I'm sorry? I don't know what you're talking about." Rihanna didn't give him time to keep lying. She leaned toward the woman, who was staring at her with wide eyes, and whispered, "Don't drink that. He spat in your glass. I saw it." The silence that followed was so thick it could have been cut with a knife. The woman looked at the glass, then at the waiter, and finally at Rihanna. "What?" she asked, her voice trembling between disbelief and disgust. The waiter tried to protest, but Rihanna had already pulled out her phone. "Let's call the owner," she said, without taking her eyes off him. "Let's see what he thinks of your specialty of the day." The guy started sweating. "Wait, there's no need to." "For what?" Rihanna interrupted, raising her voice just enough for everyone in the restaurant to turn around. "To expose your disgusting behavior? Too late, buddy." The affected woman, still in shock, took out her own phone and started recording. The waiter looked around, searching for an escape that didn't exist. How had it come to this? What had gone through his mind to make him think he could get away with it? And, above all, how many times had he done something like this before without being caught? Rihanna was already dialing the owner's number. "We're going to settle this," she said, with a calmness that only heightened the tension. "But first, you're going to get the hell out of here. Now." The waiter opened his mouth to protest, but the stares of the diners stopped him. Some murmured, others recorded with their phones. The scandal was served, and there was no turning back. As the restaurant owner arrived, Rihanna couldn't help but wonder, how many times had he done this before? How many glasses had been contaminated by his hatred? And, most importantly, What else was about to come to light once the owner heard the truth? The restaurant was at its busiest hour. The tables were full, and the murmur of conversations mixed with the sound of cutlery and occasional laughter. Jessica and Michael entered through the main door, holding hands. Jessica wore an elegant dress that accentuated her figure, and Michael, a dark suit that matched perfectly. Both were smiling, celebrating Jessica's recent promotion at work. Ryan, the waiter, saw them enter from behind the bar. His expression changed slightly upon noticing that Jessica was Afro-descendant. He frowned for a moment, but quickly returned to his professional smile, though this time it didn't reach his eyes. "Good evening," Jessica said kindly as she approached Ryan. "We have a reservation under Johnson." Ryan nodded without looking directly at her. He checked the reservation list on his iPad and pointed toward the back of the restaurant. "Follow me, please," he said in a cold, almost mechanical tone. He led them to a table near the kitchen, far from the windows with a view of the city and away from the lively atmosphere of the place. Jessica glanced at Michael with a raised eyebrow, but said nothing. They sat down, and Ryan handed them the menus. "Your waitress will be with you shortly," he said before quickly walking away, without offering them water or asking if they wanted something to drink while they waited. Jessica watched Ryan as he walked away. She noticed how he attended to other tables with a broad smile and a warmer tone of voice. With them, however, he had been indifferent from the moment they entered. "Did you notice that?" Jessica asked in a low voice, leaning toward Michael. "Notice what?" he replied, distracted as he flipped through the menu. "The waiter. He treated us as if we didn't belong here." Michael looked up at Jessica. "I don't think it was on purpose. He's probably just busy." Jessica wasn't convinced but decided not to push it. She didn't want to ruin the night. After all, they were there to celebrate. However, she couldn't help but notice how Ryan avoided looking at her every time he passed near their table. Meanwhile, Ryan continued with his tasks, but his mind was elsewhere. Every time he saw Jessica, he felt an unease he couldn't explain. It wasn't something he had planned, but something inside him led him to act differently toward her. He deliberately ignored her, assigning her the least desirable table and avoiding any unnecessary interaction. Jessica tried not to make a big deal out of it, but Ryan's attitude was hard to ignore. She decided to focus on Michael and the celebration, but she couldn't help wondering if she had done something to deserve that treatment. "How about we order a bottle of wine?" Michael suggested, trying to distract her. "Sounds good," Jessica replied, forcing a smile. Ryan was the one who took their order. He noted everything down precisely, but without making eye contact with Jessica. When he finished, he walked away quickly, leaving Jessica with an uncomfortable feeling she couldn't shake. Ryan grew up in a small town in the Midwest, where diversity was almost non-existent. His working-class family lived in a community where most people were white and shared similar views on race and society. Since childhood, Ryan had heard derogatory comments about black people at home and in his neighborhood. His father, in particular, often made racist jokes during dinner, and his mother never corrected him. For Ryan, those ideas became something normal, almost invisible. At school, Ryan didn't have many opportunities to interact with people of other races. His town was homogeneous, and the few black students who arrived were often treated with coldness or outright ignored. Ryan never considered himself racist. He simply believed he was following the example of the adults around him. However, over time, those prejudices took root in his mind, even though he never expressed them openly. When Ryan moved to the city to work at the restaurant, he found himself in a more diverse environment for the first time. At first, he felt uncomfortable, but he learned to hide his prejudices under a mask of professionalism. Deep down, though, he still felt an unease he couldn't explain. Every time he served a black person, he felt an internal resistance, as if something in his mind told him he shouldn't treat them the same as everyone else. One day, while working at the restaurant, a group of black friends came in and sat in his section. Ryan served them courteously, but in his mind, he judged them. He thought they didn't deserve to be in such an exclusive place, that they didn't belong. That night, when he got home, he shared his thoughts with a coworker who encouraged him not to worry about it. "It's just how they are," he said. That phrase stuck in Ryan's mind, reinforcing his prejudices. Over time, those thoughts grew stronger. Ryan began to notice how other waiters treated black customers with less attention or kindness, and though he never admitted it, he started to feel justified in his behavior. It wasn't something he consciously planned, but every time he saw a black person in his section, he felt a kind of resentment he couldn't control. The day of the incident with Jessica. While preparing the glass of wine, his thoughts become clouded. It's not something he had decided to do, but at that moment, his accumulated resentment drives him to commit the despicable act. He spits in the glass, believing no one will see him, and serves it with a fake smile. In his mind, he justifies his action as a way to return the favor to someone who, according to him, doesn't deserve to be there. Rihanna was sitting at her table, enjoying a quiet dinner. The restaurant had an elegant atmosphere, with dim lighting and a constant murmur of conversations. She was relaxed, but something in the air made her look up. It wasn't a noise or a sudden movement, but a strange sensation, as if something wasn't right. That was when she saw the reflection in the decorative mirror behind the bar. Ryan, the waiter, was standing in front of a glass of wine. Rihanna couldn't see him directly, but in the mirror's reflection, she saw him clearly. Ryan looked around, as if making sure no one was watching, and then he spit into the glass. Rihanna froze. She couldn't believe what she had just seen. Had he really spit into someone's glass? Her mind took a few seconds to process the scene. She looked toward the table Ryan was heading to and saw Jessica, an Afro-descendant woman, sitting with her partner. Rihanna felt a wave of indignation. There was no doubt Ryan had spit into Jessica's glass. She remained still for a moment, trying to grasp what she had just witnessed. How could someone be so despicable? What had driven him to that act? There had been no argument, no misunderstanding. Just pure, raw racism, spat into a glass of wine as if it was some private joke. Rihanna looked around. No one else seemed to have noticed what had happened. The diners kept talking, laughing, enjoying their meals. Ryan, meanwhile, served the glass to Jessica with a fake smile, as if he had done nothing wrong. She felt a knot in her stomach. She couldn't stay silent. She couldn't allow Jessica to drink from that glass. But what should she do? Confront Ryan directly? Call the owner? Her mind raced, trying to decide the best course of action. Rihanna wasted no more time. After seeing Ryan spit into Jessica's glass, she got up from her table and walked straight toward Jessica's table. Her heels echoed against the wooden floor, drawing the attention of some diners. Ryan had just served the glass and was about to walk away, but Rihanna intercepted him. "Excuse me," said Rihanna, her voice cold but firm. "What did you just do?" Ryan turned pale but maintained his composure. "Excuse me? I don't know what you're talking about." Rihanna didn't give him time to keep lying. She leaned toward Jessica, who was staring at her wide-eyed, and whispered, "Don't drink that. He spit in your glass." "I saw him." Jessica looked at the glass, then at Ryan, and finally at Rihanna. "What?" she asked, her voice trembling between disbelief and disgust. Michael, Jessica's partner, leaned forward. What's going on? Rihanna didn't take her eyes off Ryan. This guy just spit into Jessica's glass. I saw it in the mirror's reflection. Ryan shook his head, his voice rising. That's a lie. I didn't do anything. You must have seen wrong. Rihanna didn't flinch. I didn't see wrong. I saw you clearly. Jessica, still stunned, pulled out her phone and started recording. Ryan looked around, searching for an escape that didn't exist. The diners murmured. Some were recording with their phones. The scandal was served. Rihanna was already dialing the owner's number, David. We're going to sort this out, she said, with a calmness that only increased the tension. But first, you're going to stay right here. You're not going anywhere. David arrived minutes later. He was a middle-aged man with an imposing yet calm presence. He listened to Rihanna attentively, then looked at Ryan, who kept denying everything. Is what Rihanna says true? David asked, in a tone that left no room for doubt. Ryan stood his ground. No, sir. She's wrong. She must have seen wrong. David stared at him, assessing the situation. Then, calmly, he said, All right. We'll check the security cameras. If you did nothing, you'll have nothing to worry about. Ryan immediately lowered his gaze. His confidence vanished, and he started sweating. There's no need for that, he murmured, almost inaudibly. David wasn't convinced. Yes, there is. If you did nothing, the cameras will prove it. Ryan couldn't hold David's gaze. Finally, he lowered his head and admitted, All right. I did it. I spit in the glass. The restaurant fell silent. Jessica looked at Ryan with fury, while Michael held her arm, trying to calm her down. Rihanna didn't take her eyes off Ryan, her expression a mix of indignation and satisfaction for having exposed the truth. David didn't hesitate. You're fired. Get out right now. Ryan said nothing. He gathered his things and left the restaurant under the diner's stairs. Rihanna approached Jessica and offered her support, while David apologized to her and promised to take measures to ensure something like this never happened again. David looked at Ryan with a serious expression. The restaurant was silent, all the diners watching the scene, some recording with their phones. Ryan, still sweating and looking down, tried to speak. Sir, please, Ryan began, his voice trembling. It was a mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. David remained unmoved. A mistake is not spitting into a customer's glass. That is something intentional, Ryan. And I'm not going to tolerate it in my restaurant. Ryan tried to justify himself again. It's just that she treated me with contempt from the moment she walked in. She made me feel like I wasn't good enough to serve her. David interrupted him. It doesn't matter how she made you feel. Nothing justifies what you did. This is a place where everyone must be treated with respect, no matter who they are. Ryan lowered his gaze even more. I know, sir. I'm really sorry. David sighed. Sorry isn't enough, Ryan. What you did is unacceptable. You're fired. Hand in your uniform and leave right now. Ryan nodded slowly, without lifting his eyes. He headed toward the back of the restaurant, where the staff area was. The diners watched him as he walked, some murmuring, others shaking their heads. Rihanna and Jessica followed him with their eyes, while Michael held Jessica by the arm. In the staff area, Ryan took off his apron and left it on a bench. He gathered his belongings from his locker and exited through the back door. The cool night air hit his face, but it didn't bring relief. He knew his life was about to change forever. As he walked through the alley, he took out his phone and saw several notifications. Someone had already uploaded a video of the incident to social media. Comments were starting to appear, most filled with outrage and fury. Ryan felt a knot in his stomach. He knew he wouldn't be able to escape this. He reached his apartment and closed the door behind him. He sat on the couch, staring into space. His mind was blank, but his heart was pounding. He knew he would have to face the consequences of his actions, but he wasn't prepared for what was to come. The video began circulating just minutes after Ryan was fired. Jessica had uploaded it to her Twitter account with a clear message: "This just happened to me in a luxury restaurant. How much longer do we have to endure this kind of racism?" The video, which showed Rihanna confronting Ryan and David firing him, was shocking. Within minutes, retweets and likes started piling up. Rihanna, who already had millions of followers on social media, shared the video on her Instagram profile with a forceful comment: "This is unacceptable. We cannot allow this kind of behavior to continue. Thank you, Jessica, for your courage in speaking out. #Justice for Jessica." Her post was like gasoline on a fire. In less than an hour, the video was trending on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The comments came flooding in. Thousands of people expressed their outrage, supporting Jessica and condemning Ryan. Some users shared their own experiences with racism in restaurants and other public spaces. Others began tagging the restaurant, demanding answers and concrete actions. The restaurant, which until then had been known for its excellent service and exclusive atmosphere, started receiving massive criticism. Google and Yelp reviews were flooded with negative comments. "I can't believe they allowed someone like that to work here," one user wrote. "I will never set foot in this place again," commented another. Even some regular customers expressed their disappointment. David, the restaurant owner, tried to control the situation. He posted a statement on the establishment's social media: "We are deeply dismayed by what happened. The employee in question has been immediately dismissed, and we are reviewing our policies to ensure this never happens again. We apologize to Jessica and everyone affected by this reprehensible act." However, the apology was not enough to calm people's anger. Meanwhile, Ryan tried to stay away from social media, but it was impossible. His name and photo started circulating online, along with accusations and threats. He received hateful messages on his personal accounts, and some users even posted his address and phone number. Ryan felt cornered, not knowing how to escape the storm he had brought upon himself. Jessica, on the other hand, received an outpouring of support. Messages of solidarity, offers of legal assistance, and even invitations to television programs began flooding her social media. Although she was grateful for the support, she also felt overwhelmed. She hadn't expected the incident to become so big. Rihanna continued using her platform to keep the issue in the public conversation. In a series of Instagram stories, she spoke about the importance of denouncing racism and supporting victims. "This isn't just about Jessica. It's about all of us. We need to be more aware and take action when we see injustice," she said in one of them. The incident didn't just affect those directly involved. It also sparked a national debate on racism in public spaces. Media outlets, influencers, and politicians began discussing the issue, demanding changes in hiring policies and training within the service industry. Ryan closed the door to his apartment and leaned against it, breathing deeply. The silence of his home was a brutal contrast to the chaos he had just experienced. He took off his jacket and threw it onto the couch, then collapsed into a chair, staring into the void. His mind was blank, but his heart was pounding. He took out his phone and turned it on. Notifications started popping up immediately: text messages, missed calls, social media alerts. He opened Twitter and saw that his name was trending. The video of the confrontation at the restaurant had thousands of retweets and comments. Most of them were filled with outrage and fury. "Disgusting racist," said one comment. "I hope you never find a job again," wrote another. "How dare you do that to someone?" asked a third. Ryan lowered his gaze, feeling a knot in his stomach. He couldn't believe how quickly everything had spiraled out of control. He opened Instagram and saw that Rihanna had shared the video on her profile. The comments there were just as harsh, if not worse. Some users had even posted his photo and full name, along with accusations and threats. He closed social media and opened his email inbox. There were several messages from his boss, David, confirming his dismissal and asking him to return his uniform and any property belonging to the restaurant. There was also an email from the Human Resources Department informing him that his conduct had violated company policies and that there would be no possibility of appeal. Ryan placed the phone on the table and covered his face with his hands. He knew he had made a mistake, but he hadn't thought about the consequences. Now, his life was in ruins. Not only had he lost his job, but his reputation was destroyed. Who would hire him after this? How could he recover? He tried to remember how he had gotten to this point. When had he started feeling that resentment toward black people? It wasn't something he had planned, but it wasn't something new either. He recalled the comments he had heard as a child, the racist jokes his father made at the dinner table, the looks of disdain he had seen in his town towards the few black people who lived there. He had never questioned those attitudes. He had simply absorbed them. But now, sitting in his apartment, with his life falling apart, Ryan began to wonder if all of that had been a mistake. Did he really believe that black people were inferior? Or had he simply followed the example of others without thinking about the consequences? He called his mother, seeking some comfort. She answered on the third ring. "Ryan, what happened?" she asked, worried. "I've seen horrible things on the news." Ryan sighed. "Mom, I made a mistake. A big mistake." "What did you do?" she asked, her voice filled with anxiety. Ryan told her what had happened, omitting some details so as not to make things worse. His mother remained silent for a moment, then said, "Ryan, that was wrong. Very wrong. I can't defend what you did." "I know, Mom," Ryan replied, feeling tears start to form in his eyes. "I don't know how to fix this." "I don't know if you can fix it," his mother said. "But you have to learn from this. You have to change." Ryan didn't know what to say. He hung up the phone and sat in silence, wondering if he really could change. Was it possible to leave behind years of prejudice and resentment? Or was he doomed to be seen as a racist forever? David arrived at the restaurant early in the morning, before it opened to the public. The place was empty, but the tension in the air was palpable. He knew he had to act quickly to control the situation. Social media was flooded with criticism, and negative reviews kept pouring in. He couldn't allow the incident to destroy everything he had built. He called an emergency meeting with his team of managers and key staff. Everyone was seated in the meeting room, expectant. David began speaking calmly but firmly. "We all know what happened last night," he said. "It was a serious mistake, and we cannot allow something like that to happen again. We need to take immediate action to repair the damage and ensure this doesn't repeat itself." One of the managers, Laura, nodded. "What can we do? Social media is on fire." David took a breath. "First, we are going to issue a public statement apologizing to Jessica and everyone affected. We need to be transparent and show that we are taking this seriously." Laura quickly took notes. "What else?" "We are going to implement mandatory anti-racism workshops for all staff," David continued. "I want everyone, from the waiters to the cooks, to participate. We need to educate ourselves and make sure this kind of behavior is not tolerated." The team nodded in silence. They knew it was necessary, but they also understood the magnitude of the challenge. David went on, "We will also review our hiring and training policies. We need to ensure that all employees understand the importance of diversity and inclusion." After the meeting, David sat in his office and drafted the statement. He reviewed it several times, making sure it conveyed the right message. Then, he posted it on the restaurant's social media and website. "To our valued customers and the community at large, we are deeply dismayed by the incident that occurred last night at our restaurant. The behavior of the employee in question was unacceptable and does not represent the values we uphold. We have taken immediate action, including terminating the employee and implementing mandatory anti-racism workshops for all our staff. We sincerely apologize to Jessica and to everyone affected by this deplorable act. We are committed to learning from this mistake and ensuring that our restaurant is a safe and welcoming place for everyone. Thank you for your understanding and support." The statement was well received by some, but others remained skeptical. The criticism didn't stop immediately, but David knew this was a necessary first step. Meanwhile, the anti-racism workshops began to be organized. David hired a consultant specializing in diversity and inclusion to lead the sessions. The first workshop took place 2 days after the incident. All employees attended, from the waiters to the cooks and cleaning staff. The consultant, a man named Marcus, began the session with a simple but powerful question. "What does inclusion mean to you?" The question sparked a lively discussion. Some employees shared their own experiences with racism, while others admitted they had never thought about the issue deeply. Marcus skillfully guided the conversation, helping the team understand the importance of diversity and inclusion in the workplace. David watched the session from the back of the room, feeling a glimmer of hope. He knew it wouldn't be easy to change the restaurant's culture overnight, but he was determined to do it. At the end of the day, David called Jessica to personally apologize. The conversation was brief but sincere. "Jessica, I want to apologize again for what happened," David said. "There's no excuse for what occurred, but I want you to know that we are taking steps to make sure this never happens again." Jessica listened in silence, then responded, "Thank you for the apology, David. I hope you're really making meaningful changes." "We are," David assured her. "And if you ever decide to come back, I guarantee you'll be treated with the respect you deserve." Jessica didn't promise to return, but she appreciated the call. David hung up, feeling that at least he had taken a step in the right direction. Jessica was sitting in her apartment, checking the notifications on her phone. Since the video of the incident had gone viral, her life had completely changed. She was receiving messages of support from people all over the country, offers for interviews in the media, and invitations to participate in panels and events about racism and discrimination. At first, Jessica felt overwhelmed. She wasn't used to so much attention, let alone being at the center of a national debate. But as she read the messages of support and the stories of other people who had gone through similar situations, she began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: empowerment. She decided she couldn't stay silent. If her experience could help others, then she had to speak up. She started by writing a Twitter thread, detailing what had happened at the restaurant and how she had felt in that moment. "Last night, I experienced something I will never forget," she wrote. "I was the victim of a blatant act of racism at a luxury restaurant. Thanks to RIHANNA, who was there and supported me, I was able to speak out. But this is not just about me. It's about everyone who has suffered discrimination in silence. We have to speak up. We have to act." The thread went viral within minutes. Thousands of people shared it, adding their own experiences and messages of support. Jessica felt overwhelmed by the response, but also motivated. She knew she was doing the right thing. The next day, she received a call from a producer of a morning television show. They wanted Jessica to appear live to talk about her experience and the impact it had on social media. Jessica hesitated for a moment, but then accepted. She knew it was an opportunity to reach more people. At the television studio, Jessica sat in front of the cameras, nervous but determined. The host began the interview with a direct question. "Jessica, can you tell us what happened at the restaurant?" Jessica took a deep breath and began to recount the events. She spoke calmly but firmly, describing how Ryan had ignored her from the moment she entered the restaurant, how he had spat in her wine glass, and how RIHANNA had stepped in to help her. She also talked about the emotional impact the incident had on her. "It was humiliating," Jessica said. "But it was also a reminder that racism is still a reality in our society. We cannot allow this to keep happening." The host nodded, then asked, "What message would you give to other people who have gone through something similar?" Jessica looked directly at the camera. "I would tell them that they are not alone, that they have to speak up, report it, and seek support. And to those who witness acts of racism, I say, do not stay silent. Injustice only ends when we take action." The interview was a success. Jessica received even more messages of support and offers to participate in other shows and events. She decided to create an Instagram account dedicated to sharing stories of people who had suffered discrimination, as well as resources and advice on how to confront racism. RIHANNA, who had been closely following Jessica's activism, reached out to offer her support. "I'm proud of you," RIHANNA said in a voice message. "What you're doing is important. Count on me for whatever you need." Jessica felt grateful and motivated. She knew she couldn't change the world overnight, but she was determined to do her part. She started working on a project to create educational workshops on racism and diversity aimed at businesses and schools. As the days passed, Jessica felt stronger and more confident. She had transformed a traumatic experience into an opportunity to educate and raise awareness. She knew the road wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to face it. RIHANNA was in her recording studio when she received a notification on her phone. It was a message from Jessica, thanking her for her support and telling her about the educational workshops she was organizing. RIHANNA smiled as she read it. She knew that Jessica was doing important work, and she wanted to help her even more. She decided to use her platform to amplify Jessica's message. She posted a series of stories on Instagram, sharing Jessica's Twitter thread and encouraging her followers to read it and support her cause. "This is important," RIHANNA wrote in one of the stories. "Jessica is doing an incredible job raising awareness about racism. We can all learn from her experience and support her fight. #Justice for Jessica." RIHANNA's stories had an immediate impact. Thousands of people visited Jessica's profile, followed her account, and shared her message. RIHANNA also received messages from other celebrities and companies, asking how they could help. RIHANNA decided to organize a virtual meeting with some of her industry contacts. She invited restaurant owners, corporate executives, and representatives from nonprofit organizations. She wanted to create a support network for Jessica and other people who had suffered discrimination. During the meeting, RIHANNA spoke passionately about the importance of taking concrete action against racism. "We can't stay silent," she said. "We have to make sure our spaces are safe and welcoming for everyone. That means implementing clear policies, offering training, and supporting victims of discrimination." The participants nodded, and several committed to taking action in their own businesses. One restaurant owner promised to implement mandatory anti-racism workshops for all staff. An executive from a hotel chain committed to reviewing their hiring policies to ensure they were inclusive. Rihanna also reached out to Jessica to offer her direct support. "If you need resources or help organizing your workshops, count on me," Rihanna told her in a call. "This is important, and I want to make sure you have everything you need." Jessica felt grateful and motivated. She knew that with Rihanna's support, her message would reach even further. Together, they began planning a virtual event to raise awareness about racism in the service industry. The event, titled Breaking Barriers, Conversations on Racism and Diversity, featured Jessica, Rihanna, and several experts in diversity and inclusion. It was streamed live on Rihanna's and Jessica's social media accounts and had an audience of thousands of people. During the event, Jessica shared her experience and spoke about the importance of reporting racism. Rihanna, for her part, emphasized the responsibility of businesses and celebrities to use their influence to create positive change. "We can't be complicit in silence," Rihanna said. "We have to be active allies in the fight against racism. That means educating ourselves, speaking up, and taking action." The event was a success. It received positive feedback from the audience and sparked a debate on social media about how the service industry could be more inclusive. Several companies announced they would implement concrete measures to combat racism in their establishments. Rihanna knew there was still a lot of work to do, but she was proud of what they had accomplished. She knew that her intervention had changed Jessica's life and the lives of many others. And she was determined to keep using her platform to drive positive change. 6 months after the incident, things had changed drastically for everyone involved. Ryan, the former waiter, was facing legal action for discrimination. Jessica, with the support of Rihanna and a team of lawyers specialized in civil rights, had filed a lawsuit against him and the restaurant for failing to detect and eradicate his racist behavior. The case attracted media attention and became an example of how victims of discrimination could seek justice. Ryan, who had initially tried to justify his actions, was now facing the legal consequences of his behavior. He knew his life would never be the same, but he also began to reflect on his prejudices and seek help to change. The restaurant, for its part, had transformed into a model of inclusion. David, the owner, had implemented all the measures he had promised: mandatory anti-racism workshops, more inclusive hiring policies, and a diversity committee to oversee the establishment's practices. The initial criticism had given way to praise, and the restaurant had become an example of how businesses could learn from their mistakes and improve. Jessica had continued with her activism. The educational workshops she had organized with Rihanna's support had been a success, and several companies and schools had adopted them as part of their training programs. Jessica had also published a book about her experience, titled Breaking the Silence: My Fight Against Racism, which became a bestseller. Rihanna, for her part, had continued using her platform to support Jessica and other victims of discrimination. Together, they had organized several events and campaigns to raise awareness about racism and promote inclusion. The friendship they had formed was strong and lasting, based on mutual respect and a shared commitment to social justice. In a final interview, Jessica and Rihanna spoke about what they had learned from the experience. "This incident was traumatic," Jessica said, "but it was also an opportunity to grow and do something positive. I hope my story inspires others to speak out against racism and fight for a more just world." Rihanna nodded. "Racism is still a reality, but so is our ability to fight it. We all have a role to play, whether it's reporting acts of discrimination, educating ourselves, or supporting victims. Together, we can make a difference." Jessica and Rihanna's story became a symbol of hope and resilience. Although racism wouldn't disappear overnight, their fight proved that it was possible to confront it and create positive change. The final message was clear: justice and inclusion are possible, but they require action, commitment, and solidarity. David was in his office reviewing the restaurant's latest reviews when he received an unexpected call. It was Rihanna. "Hello, David," said Rihanna in her characteristic tone, firm yet kind. "I've been following the changes you've implemented in the restaurant, and I want to congratulate you. I know it hasn't been easy, but you're doing a great job." David was surprised but grateful for the recognition. "Thank you, Rihanna. That means a lot coming from you. We've worked hard to make sure this never happens again." "I know," Rihanna replied. "And that's why I want to help you rebuild the restaurant's reputation. I have an idea." Rihanna explained her plan to organize a special event at the restaurant, inviting some of the most influential Afro-descendant celebrities to celebrate the changes and show support for the cause of inclusion. David was impressed and excited. "That would be incredible," David said. "Do you think they'd be willing to come?" "Let me take care of that," Rihanna responded with confidence. Within days, Rihanna had confirmed the attendance of several celebrities, including renowned actors, musicians, and athletes of African descent. The event, titled Celebrating Inclusion, was announced on Rihanna's and the restaurant's social media, generating anticipation and excitement. On the night of the event, the restaurant was elegantly decorated. Soft lighting, fresh flowers, and gentle music created a welcoming atmosphere. Guests began to arrive, and soon the place was filled with familiar faces and smiles. Rihanna, as the host, welcomed everyone and thanked them for being there. "We are here to celebrate the positive changes this restaurant has implemented," she said, "but also to remember that the fight against racism does not end here. We all have a role to play." Jessica was also present, sharing her experience and thanking Rihanna and David for their support. "This place is no longer just a restaurant," Jessica said. "It's a symbol of what we can achieve when we work together for justice and inclusion." Throughout the evening, guests enjoyed a gourmet dinner prepared by a renowned chef while sharing stories and reflections on the importance of diversity and inclusion. Several celebrities recorded video messages for their social media, praising the restaurant's efforts and encouraging their followers to support establishments that promote inclusion. David, visibly moved, took the floor to thank everyone. "This event wouldn't be possible without the support of Rihanna, Jessica, and all of you," he said. "We've learned from our mistakes and are committed to being a place where everyone feels welcome and respected." The event was a resounding success. Social media was flooded with positive posts about the restaurant, and reservations began to increase. The media covered the story, highlighting how a negative incident had led to significant changes and a message of hope. If this story moved you, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss more inspiring content. Share this video with friends and family who need to see stories that challenge perspectives and leave an indelible mark. Explore our channel to discover stories that inspire and transform. Until the next video. At the end of the night, Rihanna approached David and Jessica. "I'm proud of what we've achieved together," she said. "This is just the beginning." Jessica nodded. "Yes, but it's a great beginning." David smiled, feeling a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying begin to lift. He knew there was still much to be done, but he was grateful for the support and the opportunity to rebuild.